Okay, so today, chapter 10 and chapter 11, I was going through the chapters and I was trying to figure out which ones would go together because, I had realized with chapter 9, it would be really good to get, my kids involved, my work kids, and so I wanted to see if there were any other chapters that would have this great opportunity. Chapter 10, I might do a follow-up video on, specifically talking to my father figure at work, Luis. Culver's was my very first job. I started there when I was 15. The man that's been there for 14 years his name is Luis. He is an immigrant from Mexico. He is a beautiful man, and I say beautiful because his soul is just so beautiful. There was a point in time where my parents, we just didn't get along, and they stopped buying food in the house for me to eat. They bought food for themselves. They didn't let me eat anything. And so I spent the rest of my sophomore year kind of really hungry, stealing food from the kitchen at school. And then I got a job working at Culver's. And Luis noticed that I was kind of on the thinner side of things. And right before I would leave, he would make one little mistake burger and somehow magically have just these old fries waiting for me. And the owner at the time was really strict about her waste because it was her only store and all these different things. But Luis had his little eyes out, and he said, "Oh, you should take this, Jennifer." So I learned very quickly to not be a picky eater anymore, and I was very grateful to him. He still works there, and I have the opportunity to work with him one-on-one every now and then, which is really great. So I'm giving you the context for chapter 10, which is called Challenges in Your... A challenge is your leadership training ground. So I'm going to be talking about the kitchen. Luis is the kitchen manager, okay? And as a manager, I have to know every single position. And I don't know kitchen. So I've been learning kitchen for off and on for about a year now, and I'm still really bad at it. And last week I was on middle, which is you have your grill, fryers, buns, and then middle. And middle is the person who's supposed to be checking the quality of food of all of the positions, in addition to maintaining the flow of the kitchen to make sure all of the orders are going out on time. And I suck. to put it bluntly, I suck. And it's really a hurt pride thing, because I'm really good at the front of the house stuff, like bagging the orders, custard, drive-through, taking orders, all the good, easy stuff. But then I go to the kitchen and I'm like, "Dad, please, I don't know what I'm doing." So in having to be in the so-called leadership position in the kitchen with my father right next to me being like, "Hey, hurry up, hey, this is how you improve, blah, blah, blah," I was facing a lot of anxieties about it. I have a lot of fears still, but it is my training ground to really be a good leader, because every time I mess up or every time I do well, he's right there explaining to me, "Okay, well, this is what you did good, this is what you did bad." It's always in Spanish, so I'm practicing my Spanish and I'm trying to keep up with what he's saying. But it's a really good experience for me, because not only do I have to maintain the quality of every position, I have to maintain the quality of my own position. If my gloves get a little too greasy dealing with the fries, the salt from the fries or the grease from the meat, I have to change my gloves, and I have to be 100% in my own position before I can say anything to anyone else, it is a task. It is really anxiety-inducing. And last Saturday, orders are supposed to go out in 4 minutes or less, and I had 5 different 20-minute orders. It was a mess. But it was an opportunity for me to acknowledge where I struggle, my weak areas, talk to my other guys in the kitchen, be like, "Hey, I need you to take over, I can't do this, I'm not up to the standard yet, I'm low on expectations, bro, help me out." So I had to take the initiative and say, "Okay, look, I'm not doing this well, please change with me, please support me, please help me." So that kind of shows that give and take in leadership. Sometimes you can go out there charging through and leading. Other times you have to acknowledge what your weaknesses are and be like, "Look, I can't do this," or "I can't do this alone, I need your help." That goes along really well with chapter 11's title, which is Get Curious and Go Kick the Ball. To finish chapter 10, there are questions for chapter 10. Reflect on your development needs and make a list of possibilities in your journal. So the way I learn, you have to show it to me 3 times and explain it. I have to like watch, you have to model the behavior for me. I have to work with you a couple times, with you like right next to me showing me how to do it. I have to work with you like you're here and I'm still doing the work, but you're still supervising, and then I can probably do it by myself with me asking questions like, hey, come back and help me out. And then finally I have it down. So it's just a lot of model behavior for me. And I ask that all the time in the kitchen, and that is my developmental track, to say the least. Being able to not play the ego game and say, okay, well, I suck at this, please help me out. This is how I learn, so accommodate. Thank you. Chapter 11, and then get curious and go kick the ball. So basically for me, the important takeaways for this chapter were, you have to experiment, you have to take initiative, which is basically the essence of a music education curriculum. When you're first experimenting with sounds, that's how you get a musical framework for everything that you're dealing with. So you have to experiment, well, what's a minor sound, what's a major sound, what's a diminished chord, what's an augmented chord. You have to get all of those sounds in your head in order to have like a really strong foundation with everything. Now you take that concept and you apply it to your life. If you don't, if you have no life experiences, then you're going to be confused in life. Like, you have to go out and make mistakes. Like, with dating, for example, you can date like a whole bunch of people and figure out what you kind of like. Or you can read books about it. That's what I used to do when I was younger. All the books have some kind of romance perspective to them. But the main point is, you have to experiment. You have to figure out what works best for you, and then communicate that with other people, with your team members. And then in this idea of taking initiative, once you understand what the existing framework is, you can break from it. And that is when taking initiative comes into place. But you can't do that until you first experiment and you first gain a good understanding. So we see this all the time in jazz, right? You have the traditional form, which is 1-5 to 4. No, that's jazz. You have a traditional classical music form, which you start in the tonic key, you end in the tonic key, you go to the dominant, which is 5, somewhere in the middle, and you can do a whole bunch of stuff in between. Well, jazz has a different structure. Jazz does 1-5-4-1, or maybe it's a 2-5-4, or maybe it's a 2-4-5. It doesn't really matter so long as you end on the tonic, but you can start in different keys. So then take that and apply that to literally anything and everything else. That's what I'm doing for my leadership. And I'm scared of making mistakes still, but I'm kind of getting over that. I recognize from an intellectual perspective, okay, well, you have to make mistakes in order to grow. But from an anxiety perspective, I'm like, mistakes, what is this? So that is something that I'm still working through. But it encourages me to at least be a little more curious about the world. And once you take the pressure off of yourself from being perfect, you allow space for curiosity and creativity, which is important. So the questions for Chapter 11: how do you lead under conditions of uncertainty? Reach out to someone and have a conversation. I had a conversation in Chapter 9, so I'm counting that as my conversation. Thank you very much. But for this idea of leading under conditions of uncertainty, so first and foremost, I've always considered myself to be a natural-born leader, and to encourage the voices of other people who might not normally get the chance to lead. I've backed away from it, but in doing so, I've also created this kind of fear with leading. So when I'm leading, there's always a condition of uncertainty, because I'm like, can I really do this? But I always have the base foundation in this idea that, okay, well, we're a family. And I was talking about this in Chapter 9. We are a family. We move as a family. We move as a unit. We move as a team. So if you mess up, that's okay, because I will be there to catch you. If I mess up, please also catch me. I'll try my best not to mess up, but we are human. So that's the most important thing with conditions of uncertainty, because even if the conditions themselves are uncertain, if you have the basic establishment of trust among the group, then it becomes your new certainty, so that group with that same certain foundation and trust can go out in any different situation of uncertainty and you'll be fine because you have a consistency of trust within the group. So, thank you.